The Tragedy of Pudd'nhead Wilson by Mark Twain, Chapter 9. Tom Practices Sycophancy. Why is it that we rejoice at a birth and grieve at a funeral? It is because we are not the person involved. Pudd'nhead Wilson's Calendar. It is easy to find fault if one has that disposition. There was once a man who, not being able to find any other fault with his coal, complained that there were too many prehistoric toads in it. Pudd'nhead Wilson's Calendar. Tom flung himself on the sofa and put his throbbing head in his hands and rested his elbows on his knees. He rocked himself back and forth and moaned. "I've knelt to a nigger wench," he muttered. "I thought I had struck the deepest depths of degradation before, but oh dear, it was nothing to this. Well, there is one consolation, such as it is. I've struck bottom this time. There's nothing lower." But that was a hasty conclusion. At 10 that night he climbed the ladder in the haunted house, pale, weak, and wretched. Roxy was standing in the door of one of the rooms, waiting, for she had heard him. This was a 2-story log house, which had acquired the reputation a few years ago of being haunted, and that was the end of its usefulness. Nobody would live in it afterward, or go near it by night, and most people even gave it a wide berth in the daytime. As it had no competition, it was called the haunted house. It was getting crazy and ruinous now from long neglect. It stood 300 yards beyond Pudd'nhead Wilson's house, with nothing between but vacancy. It was the last house in the town at the end. Tom followed Roxy into the room. She had a pile of clean straw in the corner for a bed. Some cheap but well-kept clothing was hanging on the wall. There was a tin lantern freckling the floor with little spots of light, and there were various soap and candle boxes scattered about, which served for chairs. The two sat down. Roxy said, "Now then, I'll tell you straight off, and I'll begin to collect the money later on. I ain't no hurry. What does you reckon I's going to tell you?" "Well, Oh, Roxy, don't make it too hard for me. Come right out and tell me you've found out somehow what a shape I'm in on account of dissipation and foolishness." "Disposition and foolishness? No, sir, dat ain't it. Dat just ain't enough at all, 'longside of what I knows." Tom stared at her and said, "Why, Roxy, what do you mean?" She rose and gloomed above him like a fate. "I mean dis, and it's de Lord's truth. You ain't no more kin to Marse Driscoll den I is. Dat's what I means." And her eyes flamed with triumph. "What?" "Yes, sir, and dat ain't all. You's a nigger, born a nigger and a slave. And you's a nigger and a slave dis minute. And if I opens my mouth, old Marse Driscoll sell you down the river before you is 2 days older than what you is now." "It's a thundering lie, you miserable old blatherskite." "It ain't no lie, nuther. It's just de truth, and nothing but de truth, so help me. Yes, sir, you's my son." "You devil!" "And that poor boy dat you's been a-kicking and a-cuffing today is Percy Driscoll's son and your master." "You beast!" "And his name is Tom Driscoll, and yours name's Valet de Chambers, and you ain't got no family name, because niggers don't have 'em." Tom sprang up and seized a billet of wood and raised it, but his mother only laughed at him and said, "Set down, you pup. Does you think you can skyer me? It ain't in you, nor de likes of you. I reckon you'd shoot me in the back, maybe, if you got a chance, for that's just your style. I knows you, through and through. But I don't mind getting killed, because all this is down in writing, and it's in safe hands, too, and the man that's got it knows where to look for the right man when I gets killed. Oh, bless your soul, if you puts your mother up for as big a fool as you is, you's powerful mistaken, I can tell you. Now then, you set still and behave yourself, and don't you get up again until I tell you." Tom fretted and chafed a while in a whirlwind of disorganized sensations and emotions, and finally said, with something like settled conviction, "The whole thing is moonshine. Now then, go ahead and do your worst. I'm done with you." Roxy made no answer. She took the lantern and started for the door. Tom was in a cold panic in a moment. come back," he wailed. "I didn't mean it, Roxy. I take it all back, and I'll never say it again. Please come back, Roxy." The woman stood a moment, and she said gravely, "That's one thing you's got to stop, Valet de Chambers. You can't call me Roxy, same as if you was my equal. Chillen don't speak to dey mammies like that. You call me Ma or Mammy, that's what you'll call me. Leastways when dey ain't nobody round. Say it." Cost Tom a struggle, but he got it out. "That's all right. Don't you ever forget it again, if you knows what's good for you. Now den, you had said you wouldn't ever call it lies and moonshine again. I'll tell you dis, for a warnin'. If you ever does say it again, it's de last time you'll ever say it to me. I'll tramp as straight to the judge as I can walk, and tell him who you is, and prove it. Does you believe me when I says dat?" "Oh," groaned Tom, "I more than believe it. I know it." Roxy knew her conquest was complete. She could have proved nothing to anybody, and her threat of writings was a lie, but she knew the person she was dealing with, and had made both statements without any doubt as to the effect they would produce. She went and sat down on her candle-box, and the pride and pomp of her victorious attitude made it a throne. She said, "Now den, Chambers, we's gwine to talk business, and dey ain't gwine to be no more foolishness. In the first place, you gets $50 a month. You's gwine to hand over half of it to your ma. Plank it out." But Tom had only $6 in the world. He gave her that, and promised to start fair on next month's pension. "Chambers, how much is you in debt?" Tom shuddered and said, "Nearly $300. "How's you going to pay it?" Tom groaned out, "Oh, I don't know. Don't ask me such awful questions." But she stuck to her point until she wearied a confession out of him. He had been prowling about in disguise, stealing small valuables from private houses. In fact, he made a good deal of a raid on his fellow villagers a fortnight before, when he was supposed to be in St. Louis. But he doubted if he had sent away enough stuff to realize the required amount, and was afraid to make a further venture in the present excited state of the town. His mother approved of his conduct and offered to help, but this frightened him. He tremblingly ventured to say that if she would retire from the town he should feel better and safer, and could hold his head higher, and was going to make an argument, but she interrupted and surprised him pleasantly by saying she was ready. It didn't make any difference to her where she stayed, so that she got her share of the pension regularly. She said she would not go far, and would call at the haunted house once a month for her money. Then she said, "I don't hate you so much now, but I've hated you a many a year, and anybody would. Didn't I change you off, and give you a good family and good name, and made you a white gentleman and rich, with store clothes on, and what did I get for it? You despised me all the time, and was allus saying mean, hard things to me before folks, and wouldn't ever let me forget I's a nigger, and She fell to sobbing and broke down. Tom said, "But you know I didn't know you were my mother, and besides—" "Well, never mind about that now. Let it go. I's gwine to forget it." Then she added fiercely, "And don't ever make me remember it agin, or you'll be sorry, I tell you." When they were parting, Tom said in the most persuasive way he could command, "Ma, would you mind telling me who was my father?" He had supposed he was asking an embarrassing question. He was mistaken. Roxy drew herself up with a proud toss of her head and said, "Does I mind telling you? No, dat I don't. You ain't got no occasion to be shame of your father, I can tell you. He was the highest quality in dis whole town, old Virginny stock. First families he was. Just as good stock as de Driscolls and de Howards. De best dey ever seed." She put on a little prouder air, if possible, and added impressively, "Does you 'member Colonel Cecil Burley Essex, dat died the same year your young Marse Tom Driscoll's pappy died, and all de Masons and Oddfellers and churches turned out and give him the biggest funeral dis town ever seed? Dat's the man." Under the inspiration of her soaring complacency, the departed graces of her earlier days returned to her, and her bearing took to itself a dignity and state that might have passed for queenly if her surroundings had been a little more in keeping with it. "Dey ain't another nigger in dis town dat's as high-born as you is. Now den, go 'long, and just you hold your head up as high as you want to. You has de right, and dat I can swear." End of chapter 9.